In today's episode, we're looking at these deadly animals that invaded neighborhoods and mauled people. From a pack of predators stalking suburban streets at dawn, to a massive reptile lurking in a residential waterway. But first, we begin in Southern California, where an elderly woman's morning routine would end in a brutal attack. It was March 22, 2016, when the sun began rising over the suburban community of Rancho Vista in Orange County, California. The affluent residential development featured tree-lined streets with Spanish-style homes built on former agricultural land. The neighborhood bordered drainage channels and undeveloped parcels leading toward the foothills of the Santa Ana Mountains to the east. Dorothy Caldwell was a 78-year-old retired schoolteacher who had lived in Rancho Vista for 12 years. She maintained a strict schedule of early morning walks through the neighborhood, typically departing her home at 5:30 a.m. to complete a slow half-mile loop before the day's heat arrived. Dorothy walked with a cane following a hip replacement surgery 2 years earlier, which had slowed her pace considerably. Dorothy lived alone following her husband's death 3 years prior. Her daughter checked on her daily by phone but lived 40 miles away. Dorothy had never felt unsafe during her morning walks and viewed the quiet residential streets as perfectly secure. The spring of 2016 had brought severe drought conditions to Southern California, forcing wildlife into residential areas searching for water and food. Local authorities had issued warnings about increased wildlife activity, with reports of animals behaving unusually boldly and attacking pets. Several residents had reported seeing a raccoon acting erratically in the neighborhood, active during early morning hours and showing little fear of people or vehicles. 2 small dogs had been killed in their own backyards in the weeks leading up to the incident. A few homeowners had also been leaving pet food outside at night, unintentionally giving wildlife a reliable reason to keep returning. In the week before the attack, there were reports of animals lingering on sidewalks and cutting through yards without immediately fleeing when doors opened. Dorothy had heard about the general wildlife warnings, but remained unconcerned. She had occasionally spotted raccoons from a distance over the years, but had never experienced aggressive behavior. She did not carry any deterrents, confident that the residential setting provided adequate safety. Raccoons are highly adaptable mammals commonly found in urban and suburban environments across North America. Adult raccoons typically weigh between 15 and 25 pounds. While they are generally nocturnal and avoid people, raccoons suffering from rabies or other neurological illnesses may display uncharacteristic aggression, loss of fear, and erratic behavior, including repeated unprovoked biting. Such animals often target extremities and may persist even when struck or chased away. In vulnerable individuals, repeated bites combined with falls and blood loss can become life-threatening before help arrives. As Dorothy walked along Maple Ridge Drive, approximately a quarter mile from her home, she entered a section where streetlights were spaced farther apart, creating pockets of darkness. Investigators later determined that a raccoon had been moving through the area, likely drawn by unsecured food sources and water runoff along the drainage channels. Dorothy's slow, uneven gait made her more vulnerable in the dim light. She did not notice the raccoon until it was less than 10 feet away. Startled, Dorothy stumbled backward and fell hard onto the asphalt, her cane clattering away from her reach. The fall triggered an immediate rush of movement. The raccoon, moving with a jerky and uncoordinated gait, lunged toward her leg. One bite tore deep into the inside of her lower leg, lacerating muscle and multiple blood vessels. The wound began bleeding heavily and uncontrollably onto the pavement. Dorothy screamed and attempted to kick the animal away, but her limited mobility left her unable to regain her footing. The raccoon returned repeatedly, biting at her lower legs and feet even after being struck, behavior investigators later described as consistent with a severely compromised animal. Dorothy's screams echoed through the quiet neighborhood, but the nearest occupied homes were over 100 yards away, with windows closed, and most residents were still asleep. Dorothy attempted to crawl away, but the blood loss from her injured leg rapidly weakened her. Her movements slowed quickly as the severe bleeding took effect. After several minutes, the raccoon finally moved off toward the drainage channel, disappearing as the sky brightened and distant vehicle noise increased. A resident leaving for work discovered Dorothy at approximately 5:50 a.m. His vehicle's headlights illuminated her lying alone in the roadway, unresponsive and bleeding heavily. No animals were visible by the time he stopped. He remained in his car, leaned on the horn, and called 911 and reported visible bite wounds, and the possibility of a dangerous animal still nearby. Dispatch instructed him not to approach and to remain in his vehicle. Patrol officers arrived first and swept the street with flashlights to confirm the area was clear before allowing paramedics in. Emergency responders arrived within minutes and began life-saving efforts, applying pressure dressings to Dorothy's lower leg and attempting to control the bleeding while checking for a pulse. Dorothy, already in profound hemorrhagic shock, suffered cardiac arrest at the scene. Despite resuscitation attempts, she was pronounced dead from exsanguination due to multiple traumatic bite wounds to the lower extremities, complicated by advanced age and delayed discovery. The investigation revealed that wildlife had been frequenting the neighborhood for several weeks, growing progressively bolder as residents unknowingly encouraged the behavior through accessible garbage, outdoor pet food, and birdseed that drew smaller prey. The raccoon believed to be responsible was later captured nearby and tested, confirming rabies infection, prompting public health notifications and post-exposure treatment for responding personnel. Animal control officers and state wildlife personnel canvassed the area, warned residents to remove attractants, and increase patrols along drainage channels and open lots where animals traveled. While Southern California's suburban streets had proven deadly for one victim, the backyards of New Jersey would soon demonstrate that even familiar residential spaces could harbor unexpected danger when wildlife ventured into human territory. It was July 8, 2014, and the lakeside community of Pinecrest Estates in northern New Jersey was experiencing a humid summer afternoon. The established neighborhood featured large properties with mature trees backing up against the Pine Creek State Forest. Thomas Sullivan was a 58-year-old investment banker who worked in Manhattan during the week and spent weekends at his Pinecrest vacation home. Sullivan had purchased the property 12 years earlier and had transformed the 3-acre lot into a private oasis complete with pool, outdoor kitchen, and extensive landscaping. He was known among neighbors as an avid outdoorsman. Sullivan had invited his brother Patrick, 54, a construction contractor from Philadelphia, to spend the holiday weekend at the lake house. Both men were experienced outdoor enthusiasts who had grown up camping and hunting in rural Pennsylvania. The Pine Creek region had experienced an unusually productive berry season, with abundant rainfall creating ideal conditions for wild berries throughout the forest. The plentiful food sources had supported a thriving black bear population, with wildlife officials estimating approximately 30 bears within a 5-mile radius. Several residents had reported bears rummaging through garbage cans, but these encounters had been brief and non-threatening. Thomas had spotted bears on his property multiple times and had installed what he believed were bear-proof garbage containers. However, he continued to maintain bird feeders near his pool area and frequently left the pool house door open, providing easy access to food and drinks. Black bears are North America's most common bear species, with adult males typically weighing between 250 and 600 pounds. They possess an exceptional sense of smell and can detect food from over a mile away. While generally shy, bears that become habituated to human food sources lose their natural fear and grow increasingly bold. Most attacks on humans are defensive, triggered when a bear perceives a sudden threat or feels blocked from retreat. On this particular afternoon, Thomas and Patrick were enjoying the pool while grilling steaks on the outdoor kitchen's barbecue. They had been drinking beer since early afternoon, focused on cooking meat. Neither man noticed when an estimated to weigh around 400-pound male black bear emerged from the tree line, drawn by the smell. The bear approached cautiously along the property's edge, partially concealed by shrubs. It had been feeding on bird seed from Thomas's feeders for several weeks and had repeatedly returned for easy meals. Thomas spotted the bear when it was about 30 feet from the pool deck and grabbed his phone to photograph it. Patrick reacted differently, stepping toward the bear while waving his arms and shouting, closing the distance instead of backing away. The sudden movement and direct advance triggered a defensive response. The bear surged forward in a short, explosive charge. The 400-pound bear closed the distance in seconds. One powerful swipe caught Patrick across the upper chest and shoulder, claws tearing through skin and muscle and knocking him backward into the pool. Blood began spreading in the water as Patrick struggled to stay upright. Thomas rushed toward his brother, but the bear wheeled toward him with a loud huff. Thomas backed away rapidly until he was pinned against the pool house wall, his escape route blocked. The The bear dropped to all fours and lunged once. The impact drove Thomas into the wooden structure as the bear's jaws clamped onto his left forearm in a single, crushing bite. The force shattered bone and severed the brachial artery, causing immediate, uncontrolled bleeding. The bear released almost instantly, delivering one final swiping blow across Thomas's face and scalp before disengaging. Patrick hauled himself from the pool and staggered toward the house, shouting for help. The bear turned away from the injured men and moved directly to the grill, ripping steaks from the cooking surface and dragging food away from the patio. Patrick's 911 call brought emergency responders within 12 minutes, but the bear had already retreated toward the tree line within moments of securing the food, disappearing into the forest well before sirens were audible. Thomas collapsed beside the pool house wall, bleeding heavily. Emergency responders reached Thomas shortly after securing the scene. Despite rapid intervention, the catastrophic blood loss from the severed artery proved fatal. Patrick survived after emergency surgery. The bear was tracked and euthanized 2 days later. Investigators determined that bird feeding had attracted the bear to the property, while Patrick's aggressive advance eliminated the animal's sense of safety and triggered the defensive charge. Officials emphasized that unsecured attractants and direct confrontation were contributing factors. It was October 15, 2017, and the gated community of Heron Bay in suburban Fort Myers, Florida, was settling into a warm autumn evening. The upscale development featured an elaborate network of interconnected canals and retention ponds designed to provide scenic water views for nearly every home. Catherine Meyer was a 63-year-old retired real estate agent who had moved to Heron Bay 3 years earlier after selling her business in Michigan. She had purchased a waterfront home specifically for the peaceful canal views and the community's reputation as a premier retirement destination. Catherine was an avid gardener who spent most afternoons tending to tropical plants that filled her backyard and lined the seawall. Catherine lived alone following her divorce 5 years earlier and had embraced the Florida lifestyle. She regularly fed the ducks and fish that populated the canal system, enjoying the wildlife her suburban setting provided. The Heron Bay Canal system was connected to the Caloosahatchee River through culverts and drainage pipes, creating pathways allowing wildlife to move between natural and artificial water bodies. Recent heavy rains had raised water levels throughout the region. Multiple residents had reported alligator sightings in the community's waterways over the past month. Catherine had noticed alligators in the canal behind her home on several occasions, but had never felt threatened. She maintained her routine of feeding ducks each evening, tossing bread from her seawall into the water. The regular feeding had created a predictable gathering of waterfowl around 6 p.m. American alligators are highly efficient ambush predators, capable of remaining motionless for extended periods while waiting for prey to approach. Adult males commonly reach lengths of 11 to 15 feet and can weigh up to 1,000 pounds, with jaw muscles capable of exerting immense crushing force. Alligators are opportunistic feeders that will attack animals they can overpower, including humans who come too close to the water's edge. Their attacks typically involve an explosive lunge from the water, followed by a powerful bite used to secure prey and pull it into deeper water. Once submerged, alligators use rolling motions to disorient prey and prevent escape, often leading to drowning. Repeated feeding of waterfowl creates ideal hunting conditions by conditioning alligators to associate specific locations with food. On this particular evening, Catherine had finished her gardening and was preparing to feed the ducks gathering along the canal. She carried a plastic container filled with bread pieces and walked to the edge of her seawall, a concrete barrier approximately 2 feet high, separating her lawn from the water below. A large, roughly 13-foot male alligator had positioned itself directly below Catherine's seawall, partially concealed by shadow. The animal had returned repeatedly to this location, drawn by the predictable presence of ducks during evening feeding. As Catherine leaned forward to toss bread into the water, her upper body extending beyond the seawall, the alligator surged upward in a sudden, explosive lunge. Its massive jaws closed around her right arm and shoulder with crushing force, securing its grip as the momentum pulled her over the seawall and into the canal. Catherine's scream was cut short as she struck the water. The alligator maintained its grip as it pulled her beneath the surface, using a powerful rolling motion to control her body and prevent escape. The rotation disoriented her and tore through muscle and connective tissue as she struggled against the animal's strength. The alligator dragged Catherine toward the center of the canal, where the water depth exceeded 6 feet. As her head slipped beneath the surface, her movements weakened rapidly. Unable to regain air or break free, she was pulled deeper as the animal held her submerged. A neighbor walking their dog heard Catherine's initial scream and rushed toward the canal. By the time the witness reached the seawall, the surface of the water had gone still, and the alligator was no longer visible. The neighbor immediately called 911. Wildlife officers responded and worked through the night to locate the alligator. The 13-foot male was captured at approximately 2 a.m. Catherine's body was recovered shortly afterward from a submerged location. She had died from traumatic injuries and drowning. The investigation revealed that Catherine's regular feeding of ducks had conditioned the alligator to associate her property with food. Heron Bay management implemented immediate changes, including posted warning signs, strict prohibition of wildlife feeding, and increased monitoring and removal of alligators throughout the canal system. It was May 29, 2015, and the hillside community of Boulder Ridge in suburban Denver, Colorado, was experiencing a pleasant spring evening. The residential development featured homes on large lots with landscaping blending into the natural vegetation of the surrounding foothills. Brandon Kowalski was a 17-year-old high school senior who lived with his parents and younger sister. Brandon was a varsity soccer player and honor student recently accepted to the University of Colorado. He worked part-time at a local grocery store and typically walked the half-mile from his home to the bus stop each evening before his shift. Brandon's route took him along residential streets and through a small green belt that the community maintained as a buffer. The path through the greenbelt featured a paved trail that reduced Brandon's commute by several minutes. Brandon had used this shortcut dozens of times without incident. The spring of 2015 had brought severe drought conditions to Colorado's Front Range, forcing wildlife into suburban areas searching for water and prey. Colorado Parks and Wildlife had issued multiple warnings about mountain lion sightings in foothill communities. Brandon was aware of the wildlife warnings, but had never encountered dangerous animals during his walks. He usually wore earbuds while listening to music, a habit that reduced his awareness of surroundings. On this particular evening, Brandon was running slightly late for work and moved quickly through the greenbelt. Mountain lions are North America's most efficient ambush predators, capable of stalking prey for extended periods while remaining completely undetected. Adult males can weigh between 130 and 220 pounds and possess incredible leaping ability, with documented jumps exceeding 40 feet horizontally and 15 feet vertically. These solitary cats are most active during dawn and dusk hours, and they prefer to attack from behind, targeting the neck and spine to deliver rapid, fatal bites. Mountain lions have exceptional vision in low-light conditions and can detect movement from hundreds of yards away. Juvenile mountain lions establishing new territories are particularly dangerous, as they lack hunting experience and may take greater risks, including attacking humans. Their powerful jaws can crush vertebrae, while their retractable claws can cause devastating lacerations. Investigators believed a large young adult mountain lion, estimated at around 140 pounds, had been shadowing the greenbelt as Brandon walked. The big cat had been stalking a mule deer when Brandon's approach had spooked the prey animal, and the cat's attention shifted to this new target moving through its hunting territory. Brandon walked briskly along the paved trail, his earbuds blocking out environmental sounds. The mountain lion moved parallel to the path, staying within dense scrub oak lining the trail. The cat closed the distance slowly, positioning itself approximately 15 feet from the path, at a point where a sharp curve would momentarily hide Brandon from witnesses. The attack came with terrifying suddenness as Brandon rounded the curve. The mountain lion launched from the brush in a powerful leap that covered the distance in less than a second. The cat's front paws struck Brandon between the shoulder blades with enough force to drive him face first onto the asphalt, while the impact knocked his phone from his hand. The mountain lion's jaws clamped down on the back of Brandon's neck, its long canine teeth sinking through muscle as powerful pressure closed around his throat. Brandon's attempts to scream were reduced to strangled gasps as the crushing grip compressed his airway and restricted blood flow to the brain. The animal's weight pinned him to the pavement as its claws dug into his shoulders and upper back. The mountain lion's powerful rear legs dug into Brandon's lower back, while the front claws tore through his jacket to rake across his shoulders. Brandon's desperate struggles only triggered the mountain lion's instinct to maintain its grip. As Brandon struggled, the mountain lion adjusted its grip higher along the neck, maintaining constant pressure rather than releasing. Within moments, the lack of oxygen and blood flow caused his movements to become uncoordinated and then cease entirely. The attack was over quickly. The mountain lion held on until Brandon stopped moving, then began dragging the body toward deeper cover. A resident walking their dog discovered Brandon's phone on the trail approximately 10 minutes after the attack. The cracked screen was still playing music. The 911 call brought police and wildlife officers within minutes. Officers approached cautiously, then discovered drag marks leading to dense vegetation 30 yards away, where they found Brandon's body partially concealed beneath branches. The mountain lion had retreated when it detected approaching humans, but remained nearby. Wildlife officers established a perimeter and used tracking dogs to locate the big cat approximately 100 yards from the kill site. The animal was euthanized that evening. Brandon had died from severe trauma to his neck and spine. The investigation revealed that drought had concentrated wildlife in areas with reliable water, bringing mountain lions into frequent contact with residential neighborhoods. Boulder Ridge implemented immediate changes, including temporary trail closures during dawn and dusk hours, added warning signage, and increased patrols along the Greenbelt. While Colorado's suburban trails had proven deadly for one teenager, the residential streets of Texas would soon witness an equally violent encounter when a pack of wild animals invaded a neighborhood with devastating consequences. It was November 12, 2013, and the suburban community of Live Oak Estates outside San Antonio, Texas, was experiencing a mild autumn evening. The residential development had been built on former ranch land, with construction having expanded rapidly over the previous 5 years. Large tracts of undeveloped land surrounded the community. Christine Ramirez was a 34-year-old dental hygienist who lived with her husband, Miguel, a warehouse supervisor, and their 3 children. Christine worked evening shifts at a dental practice in downtown San Antonio, typically returning home around 8 p.m. She normally parked in the driveway and walked approximately 30 feet to the front door. The Live Oak region had experienced significant ecological disruption due to rapid residential development, forcing animals to adapt to the changing landscape. Wild hogs had become increasingly common throughout suburban San Antonio, with the aggressive animals causing property damage and occasionally threatening residents. Christine had seen wild hogs in undeveloped areas near her neighborhood, but had never encountered them on residential streets. On this particular evening, she was tired after a long shift and focused on getting inside to check on her children. Wild hogs, also known as feral pigs, are among North America's most dangerous invasive species, combining considerable size with aggressive behavior and surprising speed. Adult boars commonly weigh between 200 and 400 pounds, with males developing razor-sharp upper and lower tusks, often called cutters, that can measure several inches long. These tusks are capable of inflicting devastating slashing wounds that can sever major blood vessels. Wild hogs are highly intelligent and adaptable animals that have lost any natural fear of humans, and male boars are responsible for the vast majority of serious and fatal attacks on people due to their tusks and territorial aggression. Wild hogs can run at speeds exceeding 30 miles per hour, and their tusks can cause fatal injuries with a single well-placed strike. A mixed sounder of wild hogs had been moving through Live Oak Estates since sunset, feeding on landscaping plants and rummaging through garbage. The group consisted of a large adult boar weighing approximately 250 pounds, accompanied by several smaller hogs, and at least one sow with piglets. The sounder had been systematically working through the neighborhood, growing bolder with each successful raid. Christine parked in her driveway and gathered her purse and lunch bag. As she walked toward her front door, she noticed movement in the shadows near her neighbor's garage, but assumed it was a dog or cat. The dominant boar had been investigating garbage cans on the adjacent property when Christine's car headlights and closing car door drew the animal's attention. Christine was approximately 10 feet from her front door when the 250-pound boar emerged from the shadows and charged directly toward her. The aggressive advance was triggered by the boar's territorial response and heightened agitation from the nearby sounder, with movement and noise perceived as a threat. Christine dropped her belongings and attempted to run for the door, but the wild hog closed the distance with shocking speed. The boar's impact struck Christine at knee and thigh height, the 250-pound animal's momentum driving her sideways and slamming her against the front wall of her home. The collision knocked the breath from Christine's lungs and sent her sprawling onto the concrete walkway. The boar struck again immediately, his head swinging upward as one of his exposed lower tusks slashed into Christine's upper inner thigh, near the femoral triangle. The ivory blade opened a deep wound that tore through muscle and connective tissue, severing the femoral artery and causing immediate, uncontrolled bleeding. Christine screamed as blood poured from the wound in heavy pulses, rapidly soaking her clothing in the concrete beneath her. The boar snorted and swung his head toward the neighboring yard, where other hogs in the sounder began squealing and scattering. The rest of the group bolted in different directions. The boar paused briefly, still facing Christine, then turned and trotted back toward the undeveloped lots, disappearing into the darkness. Miguel had heard his wife scream and rushed from the house. He found Christine collapsed against the wall, her hands pressed against her thigh as blood pooled rapidly beneath her. She was conscious but fading quickly, struggling to speak as her skin turned pale and clammy. Miguel applied pressure and called 911, his voice shaking as he reported the severe bleeding and the presence of aggressive wild hogs outside. Emergency responders arrived within 8 minutes, but Christine had lost a critical volume of blood and was barely responsive. Paramedics attempted to control the hemorrhage and resuscitate her, but she went into cardiac arrest within minutes of their arrival. Despite continued efforts, she was pronounced dead at the scene from massive blood loss. The single tusk wound to her upper thigh had proven fatal within a short window despite rapid response. The investigation revealed that the sounder had been operating in the neighborhood for several weeks, moving through the undeveloped lots and slipping into backyards after dark. Texas Parks and Wildlife and local authorities set traps, coordinated with nearby landowners, and removed multiple hogs from the area over the following week, including a large adult boar matching the description of the attacking animal. Christine's death prompted renewed public warnings and an expanded trapping effort around developing neighborhoods. These incidents show how quickly familiar neighborhoods can turn dangerous when wildlife adapts to human spaces. Awareness, prevention, and respect for natural behavior remain the only barriers between routine and catastrophe. Thanks for watching. Want to see more? Click on your screen now.